My name's Russ Lowe, and I'm with Education for Social Justice Foundation. And we are developing curriculum to teach the history of the comfort women's sexual slavery that happened during the war in the Pacific.
Dianne Feinstein and a Chinese spy, the unsuspecting mole who got a front row seat to the senator's dealings for 2 decades.
Was Feinstein's driver for 20 years, who also served as a gopher in her Bay Area office and was a liaison to the Asian American community. He even attended Chinese consulate functions for the senator. Senator Feinstein was the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee at the time and was reportedly mortified when the FBI told her
of Feinstein's so-called Chinese driver. It turns out he was quite a bit more than a driver. This is remarkable. The identity first of the spy who worked, quote unquote, as Feinstein put it, as a driver for 20 years.
This is a guy named Russell Lowe, L-E-W-E. He's a Chinese American who was her office manager for 20 years, so he's not a low-level guy.
Did you say office manager?
He was office manager in San Francisco, so he was higher up. He was meeting with ambassadors. He was, attending high-profile events. He was not a gopher. He was not just a mere driver, as Feinstein characterized him.
Well, perhaps she mischaracterized or misremembered. That's quite a different matter. And as office manager, he would have access to all sorts of information, as well as the comings and goings of Dianne Feinstein, who served as a chair of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence for years and years.
Yeah, and as a driver, because that was part of his capacity, presumably, he was in a position to overhear pretty much more than anything.
Right.
And as you heard in Donald Trump's kind of clip, she basically shrugged about this when it came out. When the FBI told her that this guy was working with the Chinese government, she didn't tell anyone. She didn't even tell her own staff. She just let him retire. So when you look at that tweet, she says, oh, well, the Chinese were approaching my guy, but I made sure he didn't work here anymore. They weren't approaching him. They were working with him. And she let him, she phrases that carefully because she didn't even fire this guy. This guy retired with a pension. He is now working at what appears to me to be a propaganda outfit in San Francisco, pushing dirt on Japan. So this isn't a guy that was merely recruited by China. He's a sort of a player in these geopolitical warfare battles, this militant Chinese guy who's professionally involved in this kind of thing. And he's out there actually continuing to make speeches where he is billed as a former aide to Dianne Feinstein. And that's what happens when you cover up things like that. The people get to go ride your coattails and continue to associate with you. He's not disgraced. He's still out there actually meeting. He met with a Congressman, Mike Honda, recently. He's still associating with these Washington types. He's still part of the political scene because Dianne Feinstein did not take swift action.
And his name again?
Russell Lowe, L-O-W-E.
Good afternoon, everyone. The meeting will come to order. This is the Thursday, September 17, 2015 meeting of the Public Safety and Neighborhood Services Committee of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. My name is Eric Marr. I'm the chair of the committee. To my right is Vice Chair David Campos. To my left is Supervisor Julie Christensen.
Item number 1 is a resolution urging the City and County of San Francisco to establish a memorial for comfort women.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. Lowe. And thank you for your work in the U.S. Senate for so many years.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. Thank you, other supervisors, for having this hearing. I want to thank the members of the Asian American communities that have stepped up to support Supervisor Marr's efforts. I worked 5 years with Senator Alan Cranston, 21 years with Senator Dianne Feinstein. Since 1975, I have visited Asia. I've been to Japan, China, Taiwan, South Korea, Hong Kong. And in 2006, I had the privilege of joining the survivors from the Comfort Women group and supporters in front of the Japanese embassy in Seoul to demand acknowledgement for sexual enslavement of women by Imperial Japanese military. They do this every Wednesday. I just came back from Japan, and I met Mina Watanabe Again, she's the Secretary General of WAM, Women's Active Museum on War and Peace. This was the group that was part of the 2001 UN Tribunal on Comfort Women and Sex Crimes. I presented her a copy of your resolution, Supervisor Marr. This was the first time she saw it. She shared with me that she had met with the executive director of the Commission on the Status of Women in D.C. earlier this year at her Comfort Woman seminar. I personally know the local opponents. I thought they always advocated against social injustice, but their rhetoric is right off the white pages of the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs on their views of the Comfort Women allegations. During my 26 years with the Senate, I know that if you speak or represent a foreign government, you need to register with the Department of State as an agent. Not doing so is a federal offense. As an elected official of San Francisco, you are honoring the survivors and their families for the unimaginable horror that was forced upon them in the prime of their young lives almost 80 years ago. This month marks the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II in the Pacific. The healing here begins with this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe.
Hi, my name is Russ Lowe, and I'm with Education for Social Justice Foundation. And we are developing curriculum to teach the history of the Comfort Women sexual slavery that happened during the war in the Pacific. Imperial Japan began its conquest of Asia long before Pearl Harbor. By 1941, Japan already colonized Korea, Taiwan, and began its war on China. The rape of Nanjing, with 300,000 deaths of Chinese civilians, was a milestone in the Japanese Imperial Army's brutality. In order to maintain military morale, the Japanese government created a system of military brothels. Young girls and women were recruited by false promise of work or were outright taken against their will. They were called comfort women. Over 200,000 girls and young women were forced into sexual slavery. 80% of them did not live before the war was over. It was not until the 1990s that victims, now in their 50s and 60s, came forward to tell of their living nightmare. Japanese government, to this date, has never officially or sincerely apologized nor offered compensation. For 20 years, victim support groups in Japan, Korea, China, and the Philippines, and other Asian countries have demanded that Japan take responsibility, but that has not happened. 2 years ago, the San Francisco community groups and leaders officially supported the recognition of Comfort Women victims with the building of a Comfort Women Memorial. This memorial is now installed in San Francisco's St. Mary's Square, a public park. But the memorial is not enough. Americans do not know this history and its impact on Asian immigration to the United States. Education for Social Justice Foundation was founded to produce materials for high school teachers on Comfort Women history. This is our first resource book, which has history of Comfort Women movement in California and documents from US and Japanese government that shows the creation of this government military sexual slave system. 2 high school teachers created lesson plans for classrooms use during World History sessions. San Francisco Unified School District has this resource guide now and will be in all the high schools. We are working with other school districts throughout California to include this resource guide. There has been interest from Korea and China on this book. Please go to our website for more information about this book. This book has primary documents, photographs. This is a Japanese document explaining how to set up the Comfort Women system. This is Grandma Lee, who provided the opening calligraphy here. Okay, she's still alive. She's in South Korea. And also, the lesson plans that the teachers created, they used the artwork from the survivors. These are drawings. And what we did with these drawings was we made them into puzzles. So it's another activity that the students can participate in. So I appreciate you taking time to look at our website and hopefully.
大変温泉に当てました。